Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Sam, and in today's video it is time to do my July reading wrap up. I cannot believe that it's August. Honestly, where is the year going? I feel like time is just flying by, but we say that every month, every year. I will say I'm going to try to do this wrap up as quickly as possible because we have a full house. We have contractors here to do some renovations, and I just feel like it's going to get very loud very quickly. So I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet as much as I can, and also try to edit and film around the loudest parts of this. So if you do hear any background noise, I'm sorry. I will try my best to avoid it, and hopefully no other videos will be like this. In July, I ended up having a very good reading month. I read 15 books and completed my TBR. I am actually just in the first like 30 pages of Foxglove, but I started it on the last day of the month, so I'm counting it. I have read or at least started every book that I put on my July TBR. Without further ado and further rambling, let's just jump in and talk about the books that I read in July. Starting out the month, I was up north visiting family, so I was at a cottage, sitting on a lake, reading One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune, and this ended up being 5 stars for me. I absolutely loved the story. I loved Charlie. I loved getting bits of the previous summer, and Alice felt very relatable to me in that she was trying to have this like 17-year-old summer again, because that was the last time that she was up in Barry's Bay. She brought her grandma back to try to lift her spirits and just essentially tried to make this bucket list summer for herself. And it was just so sweet. I absolutely loved it and could very much relate to sort of the feelings that were discussed in this book. Yeah, this and Every Summer After, definitely like top tier books for me. I absolutely loved it. The setting is just so nostalgic for me, although I have never been to Barry's Bay or even this specific area of Ontario, but I have family who have a cottage. My boyfriend's family has a cottage, and just that like quintessential Canadian Ontario cottage summer, just very nostalgic to me. Next, I had a little bit of a Christmas in July situation. I ended up reading Christmas in Quincy by Stephanie Perry. This is like a novella, a prequel novella that comes before the Edens series. So I read this book and ended up rating it 3 stars. I think it was just over 100 pages. I thought it was really fun. It wasn't anything super special, but it was nice to get a bit introduced to the town, a bit introduced to some of the characters. So I'm intrigued to see if and how these characters that we met in this book come into play maybe later on in the series. I did feel like the relationship was very fast, but that is pretty predictable for novella length book, and also didn't feel super Christmassy, which I don't know if that was just because I was reading it in the middle of the summer or if it just actually wasn't super Christmassy and it just ended up working out fine. Next, I read Indigo Rage by Stephanie Perry, which is book 1 in the Eden series. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars, and I really enjoyed this. This is like a romantic suspense. In this one, we're following Wynn, who comes into Quincy to take over and be the head cop. I don't remember what that's called. The sergeant? The captain? And there's this mystery that she just can't let go of and is trying to figure out what is happening. So I really liked the like cop mystery sort of aspect. I love a good cop show, so it kind of was reminiscent to that. And we're also following Griffin, who is the oldest Eden brother. In the series, we're following each of the Eden siblings. So this was Griffin's book. And yeah, I feel like their relationship was very physical, so I couldn't 100% root for them. I wanted a bit more from like the relationship side of it and the ending. I will say that some of the scenes were very graphic and there was some very heavy topics, so keep that in mind and maybe check some trigger warnings. I just really did not get along with the epilogue, but very end had me very excited to read book 2, and I immediately wanted to start that next book, so I should be able to get to that one this month. Next book I read was Lady of Shadows by Melissa K. Rorick, and this is book 2 in the Lady of Darkness series, and unfortunately I ended up giving this a 3-star. I feel like in this book, we were having the same conversations over and over and over again, and a lot of things were being told to us, but we weren't actually seeing anything that was happening. I do really enjoy the mental health rep in this book, and we got to see a bit more POVs, and the world kind of expanded a bit more, which was really fun. And I really love the friendships and relationships that we got to see forming in this one. And the series is definitely going a way that I did not expect it to. That was a very wild ending, but unfortunately, this second book was not nearly as good as the first one to me. But fingers crossed, we are just going on an upward trajectory, and the next book will just be even better. I have heard that this series just keeps getting better and better, so hopefully that ends up being the case. Next, I read A Rivaled Crown by Holly Renee. This is book 3 in a series. I can't remember what it's called, but I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. I enjoyed book 1, and the series just really fell off for me. There was definitely more happening than the previous book, which honestly for me just was completely unnecessary. But I feel like this pacing was very weird, and this moved in a direction that didn't make sense and felt like a whole different series. There was some world building, but it came very late, and there just wasn't much growth with the characters. I really didn't like our MMC. So unfortunately, this just really did not work for me. I also don't love the fact that the first 2 books were like 250, like less than 300 pages, and this one was over 500 pages. Why? Next book I read was Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. This was 3.5 stars for me. I think this is definitely my least favorite of her books, which I kind of expected going into it. I just didn't feel like I was going to have the personal connection to the story that I did with some of her other books. I feel like some of the magical realism elements of this wasn't really explained very well. There's a bit of a like telepathy aspect in this book, and I feel like the situations when our characters could be communicating telepathically with each other was not very clearly stated. Like in one situation, it would say that they could only hear each other's thoughts in these certain situations, and then at a time when you would think that they should be able to hear each other's thoughts, they couldn't. So it just felt a bit inconsistent to me personally. I also feel like the relationship was very fast and very physical. I don't know, I just didn't really feel their connection. I didn't feel super connected to the story, and sometimes that just happens. I do still think it was really cute. I loved the chapter titles were songs. I thought that was really fun. The comments about music and having such an impact in people's lives was really beautiful. And also the author's note made me want to sob. So next, I read The Favorites by Lane Fargo, and I ended up rating this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book. It was so bingeable. I did not want to put it down. It was so drama filled and human, just in the way that people connect in these like very stressful situations, and also just the way that people react to certain situations. I also really enjoyed the way that it was written. We had like our POV with our female main character Katerina, but we also had snippets of like a documentary transcript because it was the 10-year anniversary of this big event that happened. So I think it was just told very interestingly in that we got the first person experience of what was actually going on, and then we also got other people's, the characters' comments 10 years later reflecting back. I thought it was just really interesting. And it just felt really reminiscent of like Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, especially Daisy Jones and the Six, which I really enjoyed, just in the type of format and feelings that I got from the book. Next, I listened to Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. I ended up rating this 3 stars. I feel like it took me a really long time to get into, and the ending was just not satisfying in the slightest to me. There was a lot of layers and a lot of like family drama, but I just really disliked a lot of the characters at different points in time. And yeah, overall, I was just very unsatisfying with the way that this book went. Next, I read Losers Part 2 by Harley LaRue, and unfortunately, this was 2.5 stars for me. I really enjoyed book 1 and seeing the relationship kind of form, but this one was just extremely spicy, like very much spice focused, and the kinks and things that were talked about and showcased in this book were just not for me at all. I did really enjoy seeing the characters' relationships develop and also seeing like some of the backstory chapters from high school when they first met. But also the like secondary plot felt very lackluster to me and just was kind of forgotten about until the very end when it was just like taken off the rails. I just feel like things could have been handled a little bit differently. Next, I read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this was a 5-star for me. I absolutely loved this book. The relationships and emotion that you got through this book, I loved seeing our main character's experience going into NASA and learning to become an astronaut, but also seeing how much she loves space and loves her job and loves her family and loves these other people that she is interacting with on a daily basis. It was just such a beautiful, beautiful story, and I sobbed at the end. And there are so many times that I looked up the constellations to try to see what they looked like that they were talking about, and just really made me want to go out in the middle of nowhere and go look up at the stars. Next, I read Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is the Knock 'Em Out series, book 1, and I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. This was very classic romance to me. I feel like our male main character was unnecessarily abrasive and grumpy and was just a little overkill, but I really loved the small town setting. I loved the like relationships that was formed in this book, the familial relationships I thought was really sweet, and the sort of mystery background plot was fun, but there was a lot of times in this book that it just felt so long and it was kind of just repeating the same sort of situations. This book was also very much a physical relationship, and I again wanted to see more of that romantic side of it. But overall, very glad that I finally started this series. Hopefully, I can get through the other 2 books fairly soon after. Next book I read was The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. I ended up rating this 3 stars. I thought this was fun, but again, kind of that classic romance plot. Very much relied on the spice, which again, I wanted more of that romantic, personal connection between them that I just didn't feel like I got. This is also very, very much an Omegaverse book, which I don't have very much experience with, and I felt like I probably should have done a bit of research on the like dynamics in Omegaverse books. Because there's just some things that were talked about that I went like way over my head and just kind of rolled with, but I thought it was a lot of fun and just like a fun, silly, spicy time. I'm intrigued to read Lana Ferguson's other books because I know she's pretty highly rated, at least with the people that I follow. We really are doing this so rapid fire. I only have 3 books left to talk about. So next I read The Situationship by Abby Jimenez. This was just like a short story bonus chapter from Just for the Summer. So this follows some of our side characters, which I was very curious about that we saw in Just for the Summer. I thought this was a really funny situation. It was very cute, but it wasn't what I wanted more. I kind of expected this to be more of a novella, and this was really just their meet cute. So it's really hard to rate and talk about this book considering it was only like 20 or 30 pages. So I ended up rating this 3 star. I thought it was cute, but it wasn't anything special. Again, our female main character was very abrasive, very like, don't think I would get along with her in like a full length novel, but I did want to see more, and I feel like this could have been a very interesting book to sort of unravel a bit more. Next book I read was Fate of the Sun King by Nisha J. Tooley. This is book 3 in the Artifacts of Urano series. I listened to this on audio and ended up giving it 4 stars. I do feel like the actual production quality of this book was not the same as the last 2. We got an additional POV from an additional narrator in this book, and I don't know if it was just the accent and the fact that I was listening to it a bit faster, and by a bit faster I mean I was listening to it at 1.3, which compared to a lot of people on the internet is very much not fast at all. But it just like I had a very hard time listening to this character's chapters, but I feel like this one got a lot more interesting. We got to open the world a bit more, meet a few more people, and learn about more of the history of the world, which was really interesting. And the ending was just like reveal after reveal, pieces of information after pieces of information. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how this series is going to conclude in book 4, which I have started because I needed to start immediately after that ending. And lastly, to close out the month, I read Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I really enjoyed West and Skylar. I felt connected to a lot of the things that were talked about in this book and the mental health and healing that needed to happen. But I wish that we got to actually see more of Skylar's healing in this book. In this one, we are following Skylar, who is, I think, a country singer, and she's just super overwhelmed, like can't seem to perform the way that she has been in previous years of her life. So she comes up to work with Ford, who we saw in book 1, and sort of create her own album that's just for her, where she meets West and his kids, and just the community of people in Rose Hill are just so sweet. I love them so much. But I just, once we got to like the last third of this book, I would say, I feel like the plot just kind of fell off for me. Like I said, we didn't get to actually see as much of her healing as I wanted to. I just wanted a bit more from this book. I also felt like the third act conflict was a bit silly, considering the type of person that we're following. But Elsie Silver did work with like a music artist for this book and actually wrote 2 songs. So I ended up finding those on Spotify and listened to them, and they were stuck in my head like the entire day yesterday when I was finishing this book. And I think they were just beautiful and added so much to the story. So if you aren't reading this on audio, which I did not, I would highly suggest looking up the actual songs because I think it really adds to the story. But with that being said, that is everything that I read in July. I feel like I just talked very quickly, and hopefully I didn't miss really anything. Some of these books I feel like I have read a lifetime ago, so glad to be done this wrap up and move on from those books because my brain definitely has. Even with the notes, I didn't really remember a lot of books that I had even read this month. That is everything. I feel like I had a great reading month, both in terms of quantity and also some of the reviews or the ratings that I had. I had some pretty high ratings in this one, read some incredible books, and just had the best time. So let me know down below what your favorite book was that you read in July. I would love to chat with you, or if you have read any of the books that I also read. Again, I would love to chat with you. If you did enjoy this video, please get a like so that I know. All of my links are linked down below so you can find me on other corners of the internet. I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.